Hi everyone and welcome. It's me, Joseph, the Lycanroc Ranger, and in today's video I'm going to be doing the second part of my Team Wild Conservation Assessment, this time covering the Butterfree line. So without any further ado, let's roll the intro and let's get started. So one quick thing before we get started, that being that works and images used will be in the description of the video. So what exactly am I doing here? Well, I'm going to review the encounter types and rates for the Pokemon in the given video, mainly defaulting to their main rate, though there may be a few exceptions, and this is not going to be including Let's Go or other side games. And then based on factors such as the presumed diet of the Pokemon, Pokedex entries, and needed hoops to jump through to encounter them, I will then assess them based on the IUCN Red List categories, which will be linked in the description of the video. So starting off with a region that makes sense for a Pokemon that was introduced in Generation 1, we're going to start off with the Kanto region. So in Kanto, Caterpie can be found rather frequently on Route 2 and in Viridian Forest, and also somewhat commonly in the Pattern Bush, which is located in the Sevi Islands. Moving on to the Metapod population in Kanto, Metapod is slightly rarer than Caterpie is on Route 2 and in Viridian Forest, but they're more frequent in the Pattern Bush. So finishing off Kanto with the Butterfree population, Butterfree can be seen decently often in Route 2 and in Viridian Forest. So overall in Kanto, the Butterfree line gets least concern. While they're not found in necessarily a large amount of places, they're found very frequently where they are found, so they're in no danger of going extinct anytime soon. So while their populations have shifted somewhat, as can be seen with the transition between Fire Red and Leaf Green and Heart Gold and Soul Silver, they're at no risk of going extinct in Kanto anytime soon, so they get least concern. Moving on to Johto, Caterpie can be seen incredibly commonly on routes 30 and 31, as well as in Ilex Forest and the National Park. Moving on to Metapod, in Johto, Metapod can be seen fairly often on routes 30 and 31, can be headbutted out of a tree on Route 47 incredibly frequently, as well as being found rather often in Ilex Forest and National Park. As for Butterfree, in Johto, Butterfree can be headbutted out of trees commonly in Route 47, and slightly less common in Ilex Forest. It can also be rarely found during the bug catching contest. So the Butterfree line in Johto is least concern. They're found very frequently throughout the region and at many different places, so overall they're not at any risk of going extinct in the region. Moving on to the Hoenn region, the Butterfree line cannot currently be found in Hoenn, and there's no evidence they ever did, so overall I can't give them a status in the Hoenn region, so moving on. As for Sinnoh, it doesn't look very good. Caterpie can only be found in the Grand Underground after you have the National Pokedex. So yeah, as I mentioned in my theory last week, which will be linked in the description of the video, if you're found only in the Sinnoh region after you have the National Pokedex in the Grand Underground, that pretty much gets you the critically endangered status in that region, as you're found so infrequently and so spread out. So moving on to Unova, it also doesn't look very good. In Unova, there's actual evidence that the Butterfree line is going extinct in the Unova region. They were originally findable as both Metapod and Butterfree on Route 12, and they are now only findable as Butterfree in a hidden grotto, which strongly suggests that only the strongest members of the Butterfree family are surviving, and only in a few places. So yeah, as we can observe a notable decline in the Butterfree population, they're critically endangered. They're at serious risk of going extinct in Unova sometime soon. Next, moving on to the Kalos region, Caterpie can be found commonly in Route 2, and more commonly in Santaloon Forest. Next, for Metapod and Kalos, they can also be found in Santaloon Forest, but rarely. As for the Butterfree and Kalos, they can only be found in the Friend Safari, which isn't super relevant for deciding a conservation status, as that is likely a place they were moved to not naturally. They were likely moved there for entertainment purposes, not a natural progression, so it doesn't really add anything to the conservation status overall in Kalos. So overall in Kalos, the Butterfree line is least concern. While their numbers are lower than they are in other regions, I don't think this is due to external factors causing them to go down. This is likely just due to competition with Vivillon, meaning that the lower numbers are natural. So with that in mind, overall the Butterfree line in Kalos is least concern. Moving on to Alola, where Caterpie can commonly be found on routes 1 and 5, as well as in Melee Meadow. As for Metapod, in Alola, Metapod can also commonly be found on Route 5, as well as in Lush Jungle and Melee Meadow. As for Butterfree and Alola, they can be found very rarely in Melee Meadow, but can be called in for aid in Route 5 and in the Lush Jungle. So yeah, the Butterfree line overall in Alola again gets least concern. While the population numbers are lower, this is likely due to competition this time with the Rabambi line, rather than again due to external factors, just due to competition, so again, their lower numbers are not suspect, so they are least concern. So moving on to the final region as of now, that being Galar, Caterpie can be uncommonly found on Route 1 as well as in max raids. As for Metapod and Galar, they can be uncommonly found in the rolling fields as well as in max raids. So as for Butterfree and Galar, they can be very commonly found in East Lake Axwell and the rolling fields. They are rarely found in the Giant's Mere. They are also very rarely found in the Slumbering Weald and in max raids. So as for the Butterfree Line and Galar, they again get least concern. While their population is again lower than in other regions, I'm more inclined to think this is due to competition in Galar, though this one admittedly has a higher chance of being due to external factors, due to the high amount of industry in Galar, though I'm more inclined to believe that again this is due to competition rather than due to external factors. So now it is time for the overall assessment for the Butterfree Line in terms of the entire Pokemon world. This one, in comparison to the Kanto starters, has a lot more of a range in terms of where it could be, but I still think I know where it generally is going to be. So yeah, overall the Butterfree Line is least concern. While they do have those two problem areas of Sinnoh and Unova, that is not uncommon for animals that are least concerned in our world to have a few problem areas throughout the world, an example being the Grey Wolf, which has some areas where they're extinct, but in other areas they're completely fine, and they're still least concern on the IUCN Red List, so that's the same thing I'm doing here for Butterfree. Generally least concerned with a few problem areas to keep an eye on. So that concludes my second Team Wild Conservation assessment, this time for the Butterfree Line. What did you think of this video? Let me know in the comments down below. Did you agree with the statuses I gave to Butterfree? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Bye!